Well, it's a good thing nothing else is going on. We get to talk some football. All right, welcome to a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ryan Stern. Joined with me, as always, is Derek Mountain. How you doing tonight, Derek?
Great, as you put it. Really boring time in our country.
Yeah.
Just really concerned with nothing else but football right now.
That's for sure. It's all football all the time, and especially with the amazing game that we're looking forward to tomorrow. Everyone's healthy and ready to go.
Business as usual.
Yeah. This is 2020.
Just power through.
The meme. This is 2020.
Oh yeah.
For football, this is 2020.
Tomorrow is like a movie. It's literally it's actually unbelievable that they're just going to push through this. But whatever. I mean, we get Thursday Night Football, so I'm not complaining. But it's pretty.
Yeah, well,
never seen anything like it.
As of now, we have, because tomorrow is a whole new day.
Yeah.
Make sure you are checking out backsportspage.com for all the great content that's going up, including Derek's power rankings. We've got all of the archives to the great podcasts and web shows, including the Exit Velo. We've got the Fourth and Long, the trifecta. Got so many great shows going up over at backsportspage.com. So make sure you're checking out them, and follow Backsports Page on all social media at Backsports Page. I am at rstern33. Derek is at Derek Mountain. And so let's hop right into the big news. And the first thing that I want to get into is that there was so much hype about that this year was going to be different. We were going to start to see moves at the trade deadline, and it was sort of a dud.
It really was, and I think COVID absolutely put a wrench in it.
Absolutely.
Not only is the acclimation period not ideal, if there were any moves on Tuesday, so the Dolphins made two of those moves, smaller moves, moving Isaiah Ford and getting DeAndre Washington. They can't play this week, and they're not even guaranteed to play next week, just acclimating to these new facilities. And cap's tight. I mean, we're looking at the cap decreasing into next year. These owners in the beginning aren't very conducive. NFL structure isn't very conducive to a ton of trades just because they don't want to eat up that cap. Some cost fallacy where it's almost as if it's the Will Fuller conundrum. They were asking for a second rounder because they think they're going to get the third round compensatory pick no matter what. So their asking price is a second rounder. He's clearly not worth a second round pick besides this half season, and he's a rental anyway. So these owners are very stubborn. These GMs are very stubborn, and it comes down to finances at the end of the day.
Yeah. See, I mean, if I'm looking at it from a Green Bay point of view, I think it would be highly unlikely that they would be re-signing Will Fuller at the end of the year. This would strictly be a rental. But I think that Will Fuller, especially when Allen Lazard comes back, because I think Will Fuller is perfect for what the Packers are looking for. Because Will Fuller is doing a pretty decent job as the number one in Houston, but I think he's more suited as a number two. And in Green Bay, he would be alongside Davante Adams. So he would clearly be the number two there. And his ability to take the top off of the defense would greatly benefit Davante Adams. And especially when, like I said, when Allen Lazard comes back, which is probably not tomorrow, more likely next week, give him an extra 10 days. I mean, that would be a pretty lethal 1, 2, 3. And if you're looking at it from Green Bay, you're really, because like you said, you're probably going to get a third round compensatory pick for losing Will Fuller. I think he's going to sign a big enough deal in the offseason to warrant the third round pick. So you're really only trading
30
uh,
spots.
a second round pick to drop down into the third, and then also get Will Fuller. So I probably would have done it if I was Green Bay, but Green Bay operates completely differently than any other team in the
Yeah.
league.
It,
They're the biggest proponents of drafting your guys and re-signing your guys. They're not ones to make big splashes in free agency. We don't see them make trades very often, so they build from within, and it sometimes it is a little bit of a, a getting used to phase that may not work. Uh, you're literally jumping right into the middle of the season, and with the protocols, he wouldn't, and especially because they're playing on Thursday, he wouldn't be playing until week 10 as it is. So you're only getting him for 7 games. So I mean, they're a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and I think Will Fuller could have easily had some sort of major spark or ignition into that offense.
I mean, my bigger problem, I don't mind them not trading for Fuller just because I do agree. Getting the rental and you lose 30, 35 spots because they're going to be at the end of the second round for Fuller very well could be worth it, but I don't think he puts them over the top. The roots of their problem is on the defensive side of the football. It's the worst run defense in football, and they continue to not address it. Their first 3 picks were backup QB, fine, if he's your future, but then you got to be aggressive in your next 2 picks. What do? They get a Clydesdale, third string running back that's cool to look at that they never use in A.J. Dillon, and they get Josiah Deguara, who tore his ACL, but he was their third tight end. They did no moves to address, yes, the wide receiver issues, which is a big pressing one that everyone wants to talk about. But like we've talked about, Alan Lazard's played at a really high level when he's been in the lineup. So I don't even mind that, but it's the defensive side of the football. They signed Christian Kirksey, okay. He's been on the IR, but like there are no game changers besides Kenny Clark on that defense that scare you. Jair Alexander, shutdown corner, but this team's always been susceptible to those downhill, violent teams. San Fran last year, we saw it last week with Dalvin Cook. He ran circles around him, 200 total yards, 4 touchdowns. Can't happen. They can't. That has been the root of all their problems, and it will continue to be the root of their problems in the playoffs when they play a team like that.
Yeah, and I mean, we've said it for quite some time, and I really like the secondary in Green Bay. I think it has a ton of potential, led by when you have that cornerback that you can just trust to set up against a team's number one wide receiver, and you don't have to worry. That's what Jair Alexander has become. He's one of the top 10 cornerbacks in the league, especially in man coverage. I mean, he's become one of the best press man guys in the entire league. So their secondary is something you don't really have to worry about. But now they're like you said, their run defense. I mean, and I know Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the league, but it wasn't just Dalvin. That wasn't because of Dalvin Cook. If you saw some of these holes that Dalvin Cook had to run through, you or I could have done it with just as great of ease that Cook did. So, and they can't even cover out of the backfield because they're allowing an enormous amount of catches to running backs, and that comes from the entire front seven. And I think they did the smart job, the smart move when they decided to move on from Clay Matthews, because I thought it was the right time too. But if you're going to move on from Clay Matthews, who had such an impact on that defense, you have to replace him. And I mean, I know Zadarius Smith was who they were
Much more
expecting.
productive last year.
Yeah, and Zadarius Smith had a great year last year. Has not been the same player this year.
I saw a troubling stat too. Preston Smith has generated pressures on 3.5% of dropbacks. That is absolutely awful. You want to talk about you and me running between the holes that Dalvin Cook was last week? You and me could maybe have that same percentage. 1 in 20 dropbacks? Yeah. That's 1 in 25. That's, come on, that can't happen.
That can't happen for someone who's expected to get to the quarterback much more often than he is. So the Green Bay defense, which at the beginning of the year looked like it was going to be one of the better units around, I think it was because a lot of teams were just trying to pass the ball and didn't realize, we can run the ball with great ease. So I think they've been exposed. And now they get to go against the San Francisco 49ers, who it doesn't really matter who's in the backfield. Their inside and outside zone, their zone scheme running can beat any defense, and it like I said, it doesn't matter. And we're going to see a lot of Jermichael
Kyle Shanahan. He's the best schemer in the run game in football by far. I mean. Yeah. He will create so many we saw it last year. 2 absolute beatdowns. And yes, it's their JV team tomorrow night, but they will be able to run the football.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about Kyle Shanahan, and it dates back to his father, who made Olandis Gary into a multi-time 1,000-yard rusher. So, I mean, the Shanahan scheme is just one that
plug and play.
Yeah, exactly. Plug and play. They're the New England Patriots defense of running the ball.
Yes. That is a perfect analogy.
And they're going to have to run the ball with great efficiency because they have a bit of a COVID outbreak. We've now seen Deebo Samuel, who was going to be out anyway, but Kendrick Bourne tested positive. Their left tackle, Trent Williams, is a high-risk close contact. And Brandon Ayuk, who I was loving last week.
Heartbreaking.
And he's a close contact, high risk, so he's going to be out as well, leaving the San Francisco 49ers with the amazing wide receiver team of Trent Taylor, Richie James. We're going to see it. We're going to have a Kevin White sighting, the former number 7 overall draft pick. Who does he have 7 touchdowns in his career? I doubt it.
I just hope he doesn't shatter his hamstring or get hurt immediately, because I don't even know the last time this guy logged a snap. When was the last time he played in the NFL? I remember when they expanded the rosters and he had signed in the offseason to the Niners practice squad. I was like, I actually haven't heard that name in 3 years. I can't believe the dude's still trying to suit up and play. I mean, great talent at West Virginia, cannot stay healthy. Dude cannot just cannot stay healthy.
And then the 3 of them are going to be joined by River Craycraft and Notre Dame return specialist Chris Finke, who is a sneaky little player out of the slot. He is the junior clone of a Wes Welker, a Julian Edelman. He is the poor man's one of those. So
their top receivers tomorrow are 3 slots: Richie James, Trent Taylor, Finke, a man made of broken glass, and River Craycraft. Craycraft.
As much research as I do about the NFL draft,
I'm pretty well versed.
I've never heard this name. So,
a lot of Juszczyk, a lot of Ross Dwelly. If Jordan Reed is 100%, a lot of Jordan Reed. And there's no Tevin Coleman. There's no Raheem Mostert. So it's going to be JaMycal Hasty. It's going to be Jerick McKinnon. But he also apparently there's a report of him with tired legs. So who knows? Who knows with this offense tomorrow?
And then we also, Jerick McKinnon looked really good last week, rushing for negative yards. He was saved by a touchdown, and I think he had 4 catches for 40 yards. So if you were forced to play him in your fantasy leagues, at the end of the day, you were okay with what happened, but it was not pretty at all.
It's a sore site, yeah. JaMychal Hasty didn't do that much with his touches either. But it is Green Bay's rush defense. Seattle's rush is not terrible. Their pass defense is awful. But that Green Bay run defense is the worst in the NFL statistically so far. So yeah. I would expect a little more success.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our Week 7 takeaways. So why don't you kick us off?
I want to talk about the Browns Raiders.
I guess we're in the Week 8 takeaways.
Week 8. It just all goes together this year.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about Browns Raiders. That was some old school football. It was not pretty, but it was a classic AFC North game in Cleveland. It was freezing rain, gusts of wind at 40 miles an hour. I think the teams combined for 240 passing yards. And that first kick by Dan Carlson, like that 42-yarder, took a 90-degree turn left, missed. And it was like, oh, my God, like this is what this game's going to be. And it's exciting because it's the Raiders O-line and the Browns O-line, 2 of the best rushing attacks in football. And the Browns came up short, and that's a game that they're going to look back on, and that's the game they got to win with this kind of team. And they're still 5-3 going into the bye, so they're in good shape. They're still the 7 seed, but right on their heels at the 8 seeds, the Las Vegas Raiders, and they have a game in hand, and now they have the tiebreaker. And that game to me still reminded me that this is still the same Browns franchise. I think they're definitely turning the corner with Stefanski. It's a much more organized, much more sound team, way more competitive, and they'll get Chubb back. They're likely to get Chubb back in Week 10. So that definitely changes their ground game. But in that game, man, 2 drop touchdown passes from Jarvis Landry, who's now has to assume the number 1 receiving role. Harrison Bryant fumbles on the first drive when I'm talking him up on our fantasy roundup on Sunday about how reliable he is, how solid he is. Fumble right outside the red zone. Cannot happen. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. And their ground game has really disappeared since Kareem Hunt has had to be the lead guy. It hasn't been nearly as effective as we saw it in the first month. I think Chubb, he will elevate their run game. I don't know if it'll be back to the level that we saw the first month. He's a huge boost for them, but I have my concerns for Cleveland moving forward.
Yeah, and I know all of us on the show on Sunday, the fantasy show, were really boosting up this game. And it really goes to show you that you have to do more homework, and you really, especially as you get into the middle to late parts of the season, you have to look at these weather reports because there was just no passing game whatsoever. I was hyping up Nelson Aguilar, who goosed. That was a rough one. I decided to play Derek Carr over Drew Brees and lost in my dynasty league by 3 points. Where if I had just played the smart play and went with Brees, that would have come away with the win. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a brutal game to watch because the win just made for ineffective football. It wasn't like you were seeing spectacular defensive plays. It was just ineffective. And I mean, yeah, avoid
you
those.
You can even see the on-field conditions too. Slippery ground. Guys weren't getting their footing. Pass game was completely irrelevant. I mean, in 2020, the scoring numbers that we're seeing this year, those games are outliers. We're not seeing those old school ground and pound games that are built off field position, like punts actually matter in that game, and turnovers become everything. And the self-inflicted wounds that the Browns were a huge victim of, they are glorified, they're magnified, and that's why they lost that game. Can't happen to, especially as an AFC North team. That's the kind of game they have to win.
Yeah, and I'll switch from you had the AFC North. I'll take an NFC North team, and we sort of got into this a little bit, but there's something wrong with the Packers, and it's not really just the rush defense. Of course, they have been missing Aaron Jones for the past couple weeks. Right now, he's questionable for tomorrow, but I don't see them playing Aaron Jones tomorrow, especially because if they sit him, he gets another 10 days off. So that leaves you with Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams, another Notre Dame star. I think they have a combined 15 career touches between the two of them. Tyler Ervin is more of your scat back. He's going to be utilized in passing downs, third downs. Dexter Williams is more of your between the tackles runner. He'll be used on early downs and definitely in the red zone. I can easily see it be a 50-50 split in terms of snaps between the two of them. But aside from Devontae Adams, there's just no consistency within this Packers offense, and we're seeing ever since the Tampa Bay game, they're being picked apart even in the passing game. We're seeing teams avoid throwing at Jair Alexander, whatever they can do, and having success throwing the ball other places. But you look at Kirk Cousins, didn't even really have to do a whole lot passing. He didn't even have 200 yards passing because
he had like 12 completions.
Yeah. All you had to do was hand the ball off all the time to Dalvin Cook. It was the first. I think it was the first time in NFL history that one player scored 4 touchdowns on a team's first 4 possessions.
I was going to say the concerning part, the Packers scored 3 touchdowns in their first 6 possessions. I mean, the offense was not necessarily the issue, but the Vikings scored 4 touchdowns on their first 4 drives. Yeah. That's awful. That's so bad.
Yeah, you cannot establish any sort of identity within your offense when you're falling behind that early. And we saw against Tampa, they fell behind early. Oh no, they actually went up 10-0, but then by scoring on their first 2, and then once the interceptions came,
it was over.
If Aaron Rodgers isn't carrying the team, they're going to lose. They just don't have the consistency or the star power anywhere else on the team aside from Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones. So the Packers, who were at once considered one of the top teams in the NFC, now have a lot to show over the second half of the season if they want to be put back on that pedestal.
I'll give you a little aside, just going to the other side, the Vikings. Their next 5 games, Lions, Bears, Cowboys, Panthers, Jags. Are they going to climb back in the playoff line?
You got to assume at minimum 3-2, if not 4-1, 5-0, because those are 5 winnable games. But we've all seen from the Vikings, they don't always win their winnable games. The winnable games
with Kirk Cousins, you never know.
I mean, there are times where Kirk Cousins can light up the best defenses in the league, and then against the worst defenses in the league, he's going to get shut down. So it's just the roller coaster ride that is Kirk Cousins. So you got it. Like I said, you got to assume at minimum 3 wins, if not
If they have
4.
Dalvin Cook, because Dalvin Cook, like it's evident.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it in the Atlanta game with Madison. They tried to plug in Madison. He's a great backup, but it is just completely different when Cook is out there. In that Seattle game, when he got taken out, you could see the entire Seattle team lifted when that guy came out of the game. He's one of the more dynamic playmakers in all football. If he's there for those 5 games, they definitely could win all 5. But like you said, they haven't given us a reason to think they're going to do that. But we'll see.
Yep. All right. What's your second takeaway?
I want to talk about the Seahawks defense. Now, we have given this offense its very warranted praise the entire season. Russell Wilson looked like the MVP of old. He had the one out of the kind of one-off with the 3 interception game against Arizona, but him and DK were back to their absolutely unbelievable dynamic ways this past weekend. But it was at defense. First 3 quarters, it looked like a Pete Carroll defense. Completely neutralized their run game, took away Jimmy G, and George Kittle left the game. But Nick Mullins came in, played well. He had some garbage time touchdowns and yardage, and it kind of skewed their stats. But they had only given up 13 points first 3 quarters. They looked fast. They were flying to the football. They were blitzing from all parts of the field. And now they add Carlos Dunlap, who's going to fill that Bruce Irvin void that they've really been missing since week 2. They get back Jamal Adams, who practiced for the first time in 5 weeks with his groin injury, and they're due to get back Shaquille Griffin. So am I saying that this is going to be an elite defense? Absolutely not. They were on pace to give up the most yards in NFL history. Through the first 6 weeks, they're giving up 479 yards a game. The 2012 Saints gave up the most yards, averaging 440 yards per game. So it was an astronomical number how bad this defense was historically. But they play like they did this weekend. They get those guys back. If they play average football, they play mediocre football with that offense. There's a juggernaut in the NFC. They already have the 1 seed with that defense. They improve a little bit. They start to have that moxie that you see in Pete Carroll defenses. This could very well be a Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, and they don't need to be spectacular. That offense is going to do enough on their own to
keep them in every game.
Right, absolutely. If they're an average defense, this is a Super Bowl team because you have quite possibly the number 1 offense in the league. All you need to do is be average. The one player that really stood out to me, and it was the first time that he really stood out to me all year, which was a shocker because to me he's one of the elite defenders in the league, was Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner was all over the field against the 49ers.
2 picks.
Yeah, I mean, not only just with the 2 picks, but in the run game, especially in the first half. The guy is just such a good football player, and it was refreshing to see him get back to the level that he had been playing at for so long now. And with these additions, with them starting to get healthy and bringing in Dunlap, who is obviously going to be in a better frame of mind than he was in Cincy. Now, he's a shell of his former self. He's not going to be the double-digit sack guy that he was earlier on in his career, but he's going to provide a much better pass rush than they had been getting. So, yeah, this is, like I said, you just need to be average.
Well, it was uncharacteristic of the Seahawks. We had no idea what was going on the first month and a half of the year. You're like, because it's a changing of the cavalry. This team was defensive-minded for so long. Russell Wilson was the game manager, doesn't turn the ball over. They win with good defense and running the football and not turning it over. And now it's completely opposite. Air raid, yards, throw to DK one time, throw to Tyler Lockett another time. We'll worry about defense later. They can't score as much as we do. Now, as we talked about with the Browns-Raiders games, these games are going to get tighter. Weather's going to get a little bit more chilly. These games, they're not going to be able to score 40 every single week. They're going to have to run the football a little better. And sometimes the defense is going to have to come up with average football. They're going to have to bail them out a couple times when they play these better teams down the road.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna for my second week 8 takeaway. It's gonna be that, and I know that it was a lot of it had to do with them playing against the Jets, but I'm not sure why the Kansas City Chiefs are flying under the radar the way that they are. I mean, I know the talk of the town of the NFL right now, especially in the AFC, is the way the Steelers have been playing. They come off a big win against Baltimore that they wrap it up late. I mean that was an AFC North game right there. That
It was
Pittsburgh
awesome.
Baltimore
It was
game.
a great game.
It was, but uh, you had Patrick Mahomes, and I there's nobody in the league, even with how Russell's playing right now. You see the excitement from the Cardinals offense. There is nobody in the league that I would pay to watch more than Patrick Mahomes. His ability to throw from every single arm angle there is with both hands. I mean, that touchdown to Travis Kelce where he almost bowled it to him. There's nobody else in the league that makes that play. And his ability to just go deep with a flick of the wrist, he makes throwing the ball down the field look so easy.
Throws the best. Him and Russell Wilson, they have the best deep ball in football. It's not even close.
And you finally get Tyreek Hill acclimated into that deep game where we've been wondering where it's been the past couple of weeks. And I mean, he just absolutely torched the Jets. But he was supposed to torch the Jets. But this is now a team that they're now 16-1 in their last 17 games. That's not bad. This is a team that, again, they're the Super Bowl champions. They deserve to get more credit than they have been getting over the past couple weeks, just because of other teams getting the spotlight. And I think that the Chiefs right now, if you ask me, I think the Chiefs right now are still a better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's a little people get a little clouded by the present when, yes, the Steelers are undefeated. They beat the Titans and the Ravens back-to-back. What they've done is really impressive. But eye test-wise, I mean, it's the Chiefs. They haven't missed a beat-off last year. The scary thing to me, too, is their defense is really good. I mean, talk about Jair Alexander, talk about top corners. Kendall Fuller might be the best corner in football this year. That dude's been an absolute monster on the outside. Chris Jones, for my money, is the best interior D lineman in football, not named Aaron Donald. Frank Clark's terrorized guys on yeah, I wasn't going there. Frank Clark's terrorized guys on the edge. I mean, you have the Honey Badger in the back end who, yes, he's not necessarily that same guy that we saw in Arizona, but, I mean, talk in terms of intangibles, leadership, the positioning that he puts the Chiefs defense in, and just how smart and instinctual that he is as a player. I mean, it's a complete defense. It's a really good defense, and they can win that way with that offense. They've revolutionized football, and I don't think people have really realized it. What we're seeing with offenses now is because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yep, absolutely. And we started to see them get Mecole Hardman involved this past week. If they can get Mecole Hardman involved in this offense, because he's basically Tyreek Hill on the other side of the field.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and to have that much speed on the field at the same time, just has to be terrorizing to a defensive coordinator.
It's not fair. Why did we give them all the fast guys?
Yeah.
Who decided that? It's not fair, and now you see it. This is how teams are trying to build their offense. I mean, it's get the fast guys, get the quarterbacks with the big arms who can extend the play, and then we'll figure it out. Because Mahomes necessarily wasn't the most polished guy out of college. He's not going to carve up and read defenses better than anyone else, but these guys are just they're so gifted. They're so much more athletic than everyone they play.
And I think that they right now, again, to me, they're the best team in the NFL as we head into the second half of the season.
Couldn't agree more. Check out my power rankings, but they will agree with you.
Okay, all right, I like it. What is your third takeaway?
My third takeaway: are the Ravens in trouble now? If we're going to call a spade, they outplayed the Steelers that game. They should have won that game. They more than doubled them in yardage. They coughed up the ball 2 times, and Lamar Jackson intercepted 2 more times. He completed less than 50% of his passes, but it didn't matter. They ran for 265 yards, and they still lost the ball game. They came down last play. They couldn't convert. They lost the ball game 28-24. It was a great game. But now they stand 5-2. They're 2 games behind the Steelers in the AFC North battle. They're almost going into the second half. It's looking like they're going to be that 5 seed in the AFC. So they're not going to get any home games. And now they're without franchise left tackle Ronnie Stanley, who they had extended to the second richest offensive line contract in NFL history. Dude's probably been the most reliable left tackle in football the past 2 years. They lost him to a compound fracture in his ankle. Lamar Jackson's passing limitations have been glorified in the Steelers game and the Chiefs game. And those are 2 of the teams that they're going to have to get through if they're going to get to the Super Bowl. I think they're in big trouble, but I think they're one saving grace. They have established that J.K. Dobbins is their guy in the backfield. Yep. Gus Edwards was also piled in with another 100 yards. But the run game looked like the 2019 running game that we've been looking for. And it wasn't necessarily at the expense of Lamar Jackson. And I do think over the years the Ravens have played better in that underdog role. I kind of think they play up to their competition. They always have. John Harbaugh is a great coach, so they very well could be in that role again, and they could be that forgotten team in the AFC. But Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw the ball eventually. They're not going to be able to just run all over everybody and sit back and play great defense against these offenses. He's going to have to keep up.
Yeah, there's something wrong with Lamar Jackson. He's and again, I don't think anyone is at least for me, I wasn't expecting Lamar Jackson to have anywhere near the sort of success that he had last year. But a lot of the success that he had last year was because of the run game. And he's still getting a little bit of success in the run game this year, but it hasn't been anywhere close to what it was last year, which means you needed to see him improve in the passing game. And right now, that's just not happening. He's completing 58% of his passes. He's throwing for just over 170 yards a game. I mean, that's just not what you are expecting from a league MVP. This is a team that needs him to play much better football over the second half of the season if they're going to make any sort of move into where they need to be to succeed in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the Packers situation where they did nothing to upgrade their perimeter. Hollywood Brown's not a number 1, at least not right now. He's a vertical threat. He's a Will Fuller type, maybe a little smaller, but maybe more dynamic, especially yards after catch wise. And then they have Willie Snead opposite him. mean, what Devin Duvernay they drafted in the third round was maybe supposed to be that guy, but they really only use him in the return game. Mark Andrews has declined this year. I mean, they haven't done anything significant to help out Lamar Jackson. They lost Marshall Yanda up front in the interior. It's clearly hurt their run game. It's just insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. And Lamar Jackson, yes, 2019 MVP, but he clearly had shortcomings in the passing game, and they didn't do anything to help him surrounding him.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews is averaging just over 3 receptions a game. He has 7 in their 7 games. He has 23 catches for 275 yards.
He hasn't eclipsed 60 yards this year. It's crazy.
No.
It seemed like every other week last year he was 100 yards a game or 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
And you look at the same number. You have, when it's a tight end, you're expecting a much higher completion percentage than you would for throwing to a wide receiver. But his Lamar Jackson's completion percentage to everyone combined is 58.2. To Mark Andrews, it's 58.9. So that's just not enough of a difference for someone who's catching passes closer to the line of scrimmage and down the middle of the field. And they really need to get him involved. I think getting him involved in the passing game needs to be their number one priority to to turn things around.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'm going to wrap up the week 8 takeaways. And it's funny because my week 8 takeaway is going to be from someone who didn't even play in week 8. And it's that I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are now trying to tank harder than any other team in the league. We have now seen them, and I mean, Gardner Minshew, I don't think anyone was expecting him to become Tom Brady. I know the whole 6th round draft pick thing was a big deal last year, but that's just not who Gardner Minshew is. It's also not what the Jaguars' identity is. He came from a spread offense who threw the ball in ways that you just don't throw in the NFL. Going against defenses in the NFL that are able to adjust and play against a spread offense better than he was able to see.
No, back 12.
But now we're seeing, and I don't know exactly how injured Gardner Minshew is, but I think they may be leading it to be that he's more injured than he actually is, just so that they can get I think another 6th round rookie draft pick this year in Jake Luton. So if you do play fantasy and the Houston Texans defense is on your waiver wire, pick them up right now. They're going to be my favorite stream of the week. But yeah, this is just a team that. But I actually do like James Robinson this week because I think he's going to get.
The ball.
Yeah, he's going to get 30 carries this week. He's going the way that they're going to treat James Robinson this year is the way that we saw the Bengals treat Joe Mixon the second half of the year last year, where they're going to say, I don't care about throwing the ball anymore. We're just going to hand the ball off to you as many times as we can. So the amount of touches I think is going to be there for James Robinson. But right now he's the only show in town because you can't trust a DJ Chark. You can't trust a Keelan Cole or a Laviska Shenault with Jake Luton there because we have no no frame of reference as to what Jake Luton can do in the NFL, especially he had no preseason. We haven't seen him take a snap against anybody. I mean, just yeah, no. Um, they're trying to, and they're I think that they have, was it one win, the Jaguars?
1-6.
Yeah, so they're going to be rooting hard for the Jets to get to that 1-win mark, so that they can start playing the tiebreaker game. But this is a team that just is. I don't see the will to compete, even on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't get it, because they were 15 minutes away from beating the Patriots and going to the Super Bowl against
7 minutes. 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It's
and ever since that game, they have just been the same old Jaguars.
They are so interesting to me. Like you said, they were built so nicely after that AFC Championship game. It was full of just young, talented, ferocious defensive guys. They had so much promise, and it just got ruined so fast. And even this year, you had excitement about Minshew in this offense after week one and that upset against the Colts. But ever since then, they've just slowly imploded. And then you see the reports going into week 6 that they were thinking about benching Gardner Minshew. And look, I don't think we really know what Gardner Minshew is yet. I mean, I think he certainly won't be the quarterback of the Jaguars next year. I think he'll get the Tyrod Taylor treatment. Maybe he gets a starting gig somewhere, gets a chance to compete for one. He's probably going to end up being a backup, but they haven't tried to win with him. They cut every good player that was on that team so they could lose this season. And they've done some promising things. They have some very promising players. I think they have the most cap going into 2021. So we'll see what happens. They're obviously going to get a top pick, but I feel bad for a guy like Gardner Minshew. He gets a decent shot, but he really doesn't. The fact that they thought that they could go to benching Gardner Minshew to solve all their problems just doesn't make any sense to me. And they're doing this tanking thing with Doug Marrone, and he's obviously not going to be their coach next year. It's the same thing with Adam Gase and the Jets. They're holding on to Gase, but they're losing.
Okay. Did you hear the Douglas quotes? That Adam Gase is a part of the future of this team. I mean,
and Sam Darnold's their quarterback. He's their quarterback in the future, right? Okay, I did think about this. I'll throw this by you. Say they did keep Darnold, right? What if they got that first pick and they traded it to the Jags or even the Cowboys, maybe, who would probably pay a very pretty penny if they did the Eric Lindros equivalent in the NFL? They gave them 3 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, Amari Cooper, Zach Martin. I don't even know. They just made it the most ridiculous haul ever for Trevor Lawrence, and then they surrounded that team with Sam Darnold. Maybe they're not going to do that. I mean, you can't pass up Trevor Lawrence, because if he ends up being what we think he's going to end up, everyone's going to get fired. But this draft, I'm excited for this draft.
This is going to be one of the more interesting drafts because of how many top players haven't opted out of playing this year. And I think a player like a Trey Lance, and I know that he doesn't really have much of a choice, but I mean, you look at Trey Lance not playing, and you're seeing the kid from BYU who has just all of a sudden vaulted into the top 10 and maybe even vaulted Lance. I mean, you have Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU, who I think a
Micah
lot of people,
Parsons.
yeah, Micah Parsons, all these top 10 picks that were going based on 2019 film. Yeah, going to be really, really interesting draft this year. All right.
GMs are probably terrified.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into our week 9 picks. We already talked about the exciting game between the Packers and the 49ers tomorrow, so we can just get right into who we're actually picking instead of breaking down this game even more.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, like on week one, it would have been a really cool game, but now it's just the JV version of the Niners and an Aaron Jones-less Packers. I'll go with the Packers. It's a great matchup for San Fran, but they have no one. I'm going Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Green Bay in in this game. I think right now the line is set at 5.5 points. The over under is at 49, which I don't see any way it gets to. So I am going to take the under and the Packers to also cover. All right, so let's get into the Sunday games. We're going to pick. We always pick the Giants and Eagles games, but since the Eagles are on a bye this week, we'll pick the Giants game, and then we chose to pick the Cardinals hosting the Miami Dolphins. And if you've been tuning into this this podcast, this web show, any bit of time over the past couple of weeks, you've only heard me praising the Miami Dolphins. Even though they made the questionable decision to go to Tua Tagovailoa at the time they did, it obviously worked out last week, but not because of Tua. The reason that it worked out is because Brian Flores has turned this defense into one of the better defenses in the entire league. Number 1 scoring defense in the league. And they're 9-6 over their last 15 games after they started out 0-8. You gotta love what Brian Flores has done, and I think this is going to be a great matchup against a really good Arizona Cardinals offense.
Absolutely. I talk about that defense. It is a New England Patriots-esque defense. They have stud corners, Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, who they play as much man as the Patriots, the Lions, the Matt Patricia team, and the Dolphins. Those are top 3 teams in man coverage. And they're getting contributions from guys like Van Noy, Emmanuel Ogba, not these
Van
super
Ginkel.
Andrew Van Ginkel, their 2019 5th-round pick. Or
my favorite name in the league right now, aside from Albert Ogumbu. I can't even pronounce.
Oh my God! I can't. Alberto. Yeah, Alberto. Yeah, I have no idea where to start with that guy's name.
Yeah.
But this is a New England Patriots-esque defense. They keep everything in front of them. They play great man coverage, and they're getting contributions from these tweener hybrid guys that they could get after the quarterback. They could drop back in coverage. They're going to confuse you. They're going to give you every front, every disguised look. It's a really fun team to watch right now.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what sort of development that we see from Tua from week 1 into week 2. It wasn't very pretty last week. We did see the one touchdown to Devonta Parker, which I mean that was a hell of a catch. I mean he was being tackled at the time. How he was able to maintain his concentration and hang on to that was unbelievable. But was it? I think Jakeem Grant was the leading receiver.
And the 80-yard punt return.
Yeah, punt return. Yeah, the Van Ginkel scoop and score. Uh,
Four
yeah,
turnovers.
yeah. I mean, it was really because of the defense that they beat the Rams last week. Um, they're now going against a defense that is not as stout as the Rams. So we need to see, and with Miles Gaskin out this week, and probably for a couple weeks, um, we're going to see a lot of Matt Breida and the return of Jordan Howard. None of those names excite me if I am a Dolphins fan. So I think they're going to have to rely on Tua Tagovailoa more in order to get the win this week. But it's the real matchup is going to be that Arizona offense against the Miami defense. Um, and we've seen good defenses be able to handle the Arizona offense. So I think that even though I do like what the Miami defense is, what it's done and what it can do, I still am going to go with the Cardinals only because I just think that that we're not going to get enough offense from Miami with Tua this week. So I am going to go with the Cardinals, even though I do love what the Dolphins have done.
I'm actually going to go with Miami. I think they fit that profile of that Carolina defense that gave them a lot of fits. I think it was week 4. Um, they have an influx of talent in that D line, a lot of young, fast guys that can contain Kyler Murray. And they have the man corners that they could throw out against DeAndre Hopkins. Now, are you going to shut down at DeAndre Hopkins? Absolutely not. But if you can do everything to slow him down, earn all of his catches, because that is where the bulk of that offense goes through is him. Big plays through Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella. And they haven't had as much success in the run game, so they're going to have to lean more on Chase Edmonds without Kenyon Drake. He doesn't necessarily fit that mold of a workhorse, but he's definitely been way more efficient with his carries. So I think that does help them in the short term. But this is a very real defense. This is a top 5 defense in terms of yardage and the number 1 point scoring defense in the NFL. The guy that I'm looking for on offense other than Tua is Mike Gesicki. He
Yeah,
has struggled a lot this
disappeared,
year.
disappeared.
He struggled a lot this year. He's lost a lot of snaps to Isaiah Ford, who had played in the slot. They just traded him to the Patriots. Gesicki has to be that security blanket, and he has to be that beast in the red zone that we saw in the end of last year. He garners most of his snaps in the slot. He's not necessarily that inline tight end, but he's that new age tight end. He has to dominate against a defense that hasn't guarded tight ends as well. They were a laughingstock last year. They've improved this year, but no Isaiah Simmons. Buda Baker's been in and out of the lineup, but teams have done relatively well. Tight ends have done relatively well versus this Cardinals defense. Gesicki has to have a good game in order for them to win. I'm going to go with Miami, though.
Yeah. So the line right now is at 4.5. So I would probably pick the Cardinals to win, Miami to cover, and I'm also looking at under 48 in this game. I think the Dolphins defense is good enough to keep the excuse me the Cardinals from just blowing the game out, and I just don't see the Dolphins offense being able to put up enough. So the combination would lead me to lean the under. All right, then we got the exciting NFC East game of the New York Giants going down to a city that doesn't have a whole lot going on right now, Washington D.C. Uh, so the Washington football team is a 2.5-point favorite over the Giants, and the line right now is set at 41.5. I have pretty strong feelings on this one, so I'll let you start this one, and I'll wrap it up.
The Giants, I think, are the better football team right now. But considering all the circumstances that are going on right now, I actually lean towards Washington for a few reasons. First, the trade deadline came and passed. None of the vets that we were looking at that might be on the move in New York stayed put. Golden Tate is the most prominent name, and he liked to post today that they should cut him on social media. Take that for what you will, but they haven't really played him that much this year. Evan Ingram stayed put, which the media and fans are obviously not happy about. Dalvin Tomlinson was a guy that was on the radar to be on the move. Other certain guys in that defense that would garner some value. They could get some assets in return. And now you have a 1-6 football team. They've had some really tough losses. They have a sour taste in their mouth after that game last week. Washington's coming off a bye. This is the kind of game where I could see them coming out really flat, especially with Joe Judge's blue-collar, old-school tendencies and attitude that he's put on display for the NFL to see. That gets really old when you're not winning football games. Practices get a lot harder. They get a lot longer. Guys don't want to play. Their attitudes get a lot worse. And that lingers. That's contagious. And Washington is one game out of first place. They have a lot more to play for right now. So I am going to go with the football team in this one. But the Giants haven't proved. I have to give it to Judge. They've played way better football. Daniel Jones just has to learn how to take care of the football.
Yeah, and we've if the Giants, so if the game ended in somewhere in the third quarter, the Giants would have, the Giants have had a lead in all but one game in the third quarter this year, the Chicago game. All but one game they have had a lead.
What about the San Fran game?
Oh, you're right. The San Fran they did not have. That's right. Okay, so yeah, the 2 games this year.
That's brutal.
And so I've been a Daniel Jones apologist, but the 2 interceptions from last week were the result of him trying to do too much and not understanding the situation and being able to take a sack or throw the ball out of bounds. He needs to learn how to eliminate the bad turnovers. We saw the Giants offensive line play, by far their best game of the year.
He ran the football against the best front in football.
The best defensive line, the best run defense in the entire league. And Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris were able to move the ball. We saw with Will Hernandez on the COVID list, 5th round rookie Shane Lemieux stepped in and was outstanding.
Pert and Thomas played their best game too. Thomas has got a lot of criticism. He played great.
Andrew Thomas had his best game of his career. Andrew Pert, again, same thing. It's a very, especially that you have 3 rookies. That's your first, your third, and your 5th round picks. Being able to have a great game against a really good defensive line. You have another really good front 7 again in Washington. They have to be able to build off of what they did because there were a lot of positives that I saw from the Giants this week. I also saw the Logan Ryan had an interview with the New York media today, and his wife got really sick, and it was the Giants training staff that via Zoom was able to sort of diagnose her and tell her she had to get to the hospital. And apparently she had gotten to the hospital in like just the right amount of time. And she's able to now start a recovery, and she's going to be really good. And Logan Ryan was saying how the Giants with Joe Judge and the front office was saying how they were okay with him flying down to Florida and spending the time with his wife and not have to worry about football. And he said that that meant more to him than anything they've paid him or had him do on the field. So, as much as the Joe Judge act maybe a little tiresome when you have a losing season going on, there's still a lot of respect for Joe Judge from the players, and I still hear that every single week. I think the Giants win this game by more than 10 points. I think this is going to be one of those games where they're going to put things together, and they're going to build off of the positives against a really, really good team on Monday night. And I think the Giants win this one big.
Their defense is real. That is very clear. That defense is legit, and it's going to, especially in this game in Washington. I think it will come down to the last possession, like it did the first time. But they keep them in just about every single game. It's a really good defense, and they are building their team right from what we could see. I'm just worried about, do those disgruntled veterans hamper the team? Do they try to bring down what this team has going for them right now? It's something to keep an eye on.
So there was a minor transaction today. The Giants did sign a new wide receiver. The recently released former second-round draft pick Dante Pettis from the 49ers. And the Giants have had success bringing in a higher drafted player that hadn't worked out in their old place, but like someone like Corey Coleman. When they brought in Coleman had his best year since his rookie season. So I think that obviously he's not going to be able to play this week, but I think that bringing in Dante Pettis may mean some sort of benching or releasing of Golden Tate in the near future. So so we'll see. All right, let's quickly get into the Sunday night and the Monday night games. We have rematch of Week 1 Sunday Night Football. With now we have the New Orleans Saints going down to Tampa Bay to take on Tom Brady and Antonio Brown and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There is a chance that Chris Godwin plays. If he does, oh boy, you have I'm expecting Michael Thomas to make his return this week as well. So we could be in for a lot of fireworks this week.
You had the feeling that last week was a trap game for the Bucs because they were looking ahead to this one, and this game has all the implications. I mean, the Saints I think are the 2 seed in the NFC right now at 5-2. The Bucs are at 6-2. Or is that right? The Saints 6-2. Because they technically, I mean, they have the tiebreaker over the Bucs for the NFC South right now. The Bucs can get even with them, pass them in the standings, get that 2 seed, the NFC. Antonio Brown's debut, you just get the feeling that they were looking ahead when they took on the Giants on Monday night. Prime time, this has the feeling of a Bucs blowout to me.
Yeah, the Saints are 5-2, the Bucs are 6-2.
So the Bucs are ahead of them, but the Saints have the tiebreaker right now. Game at hand. Yep. You just have the feeling that the Bucs are going to get even with them. Tom Brady's as personal and as spiteful as they get. I just don't see them beating Tom Brady twice.
I was just going to say Tom Brady doesn't lose to the same team twice in the same year. It just doesn't happen. Right now they're 4.5-point favorites. 51.5 point over under. what's going to be interesting is because we started to see the Saints secondary get a little healthy. They played much better this past week, but it was against the Bears, so that's a little bit of a caveat. But we saw them get beat in the run game, which was a little shocking because they had been one of the better run defenses in the league. Um, to me that this is, especially with Antonio Brown making his debut, you know, Tom Brady is going to look to get him involved early and often. I can see this being a double-digit Tampa Bay win. And we'll wrap up with a barn burner on Monday Night Football. Uh,
Under, under.
We've got the 2-5 New England Patriots against the 0-8 New York Jets. The Patriots are 7.5-point favorites, and the line is set at 42.5. And how do you envision any team putting them up enough points to get to 42.5?
Oh, this is going to be an ugly one. Man, I'm not.
But you know what? The last time we said that, we said that about the Jets Broncos on Thursday Night Football, and that surprised us.
That's true.
But there's one big difference, and that's the Broncos have an established passing game a little bit, and they have weapons.
They have weapons. They have people that can catch the ball.
And the Patriots don't. The Patriots have nobody.
Their answer was Isaiah Ford, which any other year I'm like, oh, who's this guy? You know he's going to be good. And we've seen some production with him in Miami. He has 200, I think about 190 or 200 receiving yards. But for a 2-5 team, that's just lacking perimeter depth more than anyone in the NFL, from what I can see. They are in dire need of explosiveness, playmaking ability, someone who could take the top off, and that's their answer. That's Belichick's answer. I mean, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be Damian Harris. It's going to be Damian Harris. It's going to be checkdowns to White and Burkhead. It's going to be Cam Newton running the ball 10, 12 times a game, maybe more. They're going to slow the game down. They're going to try to play with good defense. I see an under, and the Jets always play the Patriots well. I know it's Gase, and I know these Jets are different, but I kind of feel like they might cover.
I'm exactly the same way. I'm going Patriots to win, Jets to cover, and take the under. It's just so difficult for me to envision this game reaching 43 points. So, so I think we are both in agreement there. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Again, check out backsportspage.com. You got Derek's power rankings going up. We've got all the great archives for the web shows and the podcasts. And check out Backsports Page on all social medias at Backsports Page. Derek is at Derek Mountain. I am at rstern33. And that'll do it for this week's show. Make sure you tune in. We will be back on Sunday morning for Backsports Page Sunday Morning Fantasy. That show's been an absolute blast. I love talking about fantasy as we're getting ready for the week. So
I look forward to it every week.
Absolutely. All right, Derek. See you on Sunday.
Yes, you will.